Guten Tag, and thank you for the chance to talk about radio now and indeed radio in the future. But first I want to talk about the benefits of radio that have been part of radio's feature set, benefit set for a very long time, and they're the 3 Ps. Radio is incredibly powerful, radio is incredibly portable, and radio is incredibly personal. And those 3 features, the 3 Ps, have been part of radio for a long time, and they're still very much part of what radio does today. And I think sometimes we forget that radio may be old media, but it's still very powerful media. If you think about how personal radio is, I think in the old days people would talk about cinema was a long way away from you, newspapers were a long way away from you, television was closer to you, but radio was closest of all. And of course it's still true, it's personal, because it's a very intimate experience listening to the radio. People listen in the most private of places, in the bathroom, in the bedroom, in the car. Radio gets to places that other media just don't get. Every bit of research I've seen around the world also says that radio's trusted. People believe what the DJs say, people believe the adverts more than most other media, and that's really important. Radio, of course, is also real time. And increasingly radio knows a lot about its users, about its listeners, about its consumers, whatever you call them. Very often we know where they live, we know how old they are, we know their habits, their interests, their behaviours. We know what they like and what they don't like, and that puts us in an incredibly powerful position to take advantage of new media. Everything we do on the radio should always be interesting, entertaining or useful. It should speak to the head, the heart and the hand, and that continues to be true. And now radio also needs to be brave. Radio people need to start thinking like entrepreneurs. It's very difficult when you've got, sometimes, especially in Germany, conservative shareholders, but you need to think like entrepreneurs. Think about how to be creative and how to reinvent the medium for the 21st century. When you do know a listener's habits, behaviours, when you know their likes and dislikes, then you can do so much more than just broadcast to them, although broadcasting, of course, will continue to be a very important part of what we do. What we can become is a medium that helps people live their lives. Let me give you an example of how radio needs to be brave. We already know that the apps that radio stations produce are popular. People use them to stream the radio stations wherever they are, sometimes where they haven't got access to a radio. They also use the app sometimes to find out about who's on next or to listen to a show that they missed first time around. But when we know somebody's IP address, when we know their identity, when we know their preferences, when we know their location, we can go much further than that. But not only do radio stations need to be brave, but advertisers need to be brave too, and not think of radio in terms of old media. They need to think about radio in terms of relevant, immediate media for today and for tomorrow. So radio will talk about entertainment, they'll talk about music, they'll talk about sport, they'll talk about cinema. For a listener, equally, it's important when you talk to me in a meaningful way about shops, about restaurants, about offers. And I think there's a perfect combination. A trusted medium like radio can recommend things and we can tell you about things. Then when you're close to where you can have access to those things, whether it's a restaurant or a special offer or a shop or a garden centre or anything else, we can also give you a reminder. Say, hey, don't forget, you know you like flowers, you know you like gardening, well, the garden centre's just 5 minutes away. Oh, and by the way, if you go in the next half hour or the next hour, you can also have a 10% off voucher. So I think the future for radio, combined with things like geotagging, things like IP address information, is incredibly exciting. Radio is already trusted. In the UK, for example, it's still listened to by over 90% of the population every week. It's still a massively powerful mainstream medium, and it has the potential to be so much more. So radio stations, I encourage you to be brave. Advertisers, I encourage you to be brave too, and think about radio not just as old media, but also new media and future media.